Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make these cute little baby mittens. You could use these as scratch mittens because the stitching is quite tight and I don't think little fingers can poke through. So I'm going to show you how to do these now, and for this tutorial I'm using this DK. This was just a ball that came in a pack from a store in the UK called Aldi. It's lovely and soft, pastel shade. It's a 3-weight, and but you can use any DK 3-weight yarn. And I'm using a 4mm crochet hook, and I'm using this Clover and More because I'm trialing these at the moment. You're going to need a pair of scissors and a darning needle, which is in my box. I'll just move that out of the way. So how we start this particular mitten is with a magic loop, magic ring. Some people call it different things, but I've got a very easy way to make that, and I'm going to show you that now. Let's just move this one out of the way. I will say though, if you wanted to make this smaller, all you need to do is less stitches in this beginning. I'll explain. So my magic loop, then all I do is simply make a loop, simple as that, and then I get my hook and I put it in and I pull my yarn through it, and then that's it. You have made your magic loop. It's simple. So now I'm going to chain 2, which is yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through. Now this is going to count as my first stitch. So in my magic loop, which you can pull a little tighter if you think it was too big, I'm going to put a further 11 stitches, and I'm going to do a UK treble crochet, which in the US is a double. And to do that, we yarn over and we go into the center of the ring, so we're going over this kind of knot, yarn over and pull up the loop, so we've got 3 on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. I'll zoom in just a little bit and show you again. So that's, we yarn over, go into the center of the loop, we're going over all of this, yarn over and pull up a loop, so there are 3, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So if we stop just to have a look, that's what we've got at the moment. We've got our 2 starting chain. Now some tutorials will tell you to do 3, but my stitches are only really the height of 2, and if you do 3, then you can see it kind of curving. If you did 3, you get quite a big curve, but when you straighten this up, that's the right height. So anyway, I'm going to do a total of 11 of these, so there are 12 stitches altogether with my 2 chain. So I'm going to do that again. I'll show you one more time. It's yarn over into the loop, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. All of the stitches that are in this tutorial I do have stitch tutorials for. We're going to do a UK treble, which is a US double. We're going to do a half treble, which in the US is a half double. And we're going to do a UK double, which is a US single crochet. So all of those stitches are in this tutorial. So if you want to familiarize yourself with those first, then by all means watch the tutorials. I do have a playlist for absolute beginners and one for stitch tutorials. They're all in there. So now I'm going to pause the video because I'm going to count now, and if I'm doing it silently it's a little boring for you, but if I'm counting out loud it's going to put you off. So I will pause the video and come back to you when I have a total of 12 stitches including my starting chain, all of them into this loop and over this this tail as well. Now I've completed all of my stitches and I can pull on this and close that. You don't have to close it completely. It won't really close completely securely until we sew it in. Once we've done exactly everything and we want to sew in our ends, etc., you can pull this tight, and you have to really secure that if you don't want it to work its way loose again. So I was going to show you how you can make this smaller. This is, I wouldn't say massive, but newborn babies can come in all shapes and sizes, as you know, and some have tiny little hands. If you wanted to make this smaller, you could just do 10, including your 2 chain, or you could drop this down to a 4-ply in the UK, which I believe is a sport weight yarn in the US. So you could just drop it down to the next size yarn and then use a smaller crochet hook to the corresponding yarn size. So there's various ways that you can make it smaller. If you use a chunky yarn quite often and do the same amount of stitches, that also has the same effect. But with it being on this side of the hemisphere anyway, spring and summer coming up, you don't really want chunky over here. So now what we're going to do, this is our first chain that we started with when we did our first 2 chain, and there's the second one, and we're going to slip stitch into there. So we're just going to pop our hook in, yarn over and pull through both the loops. So now we've secured our ring, and I'm going to pull that tight. It might work its way loose, but it doesn't really matter. So now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm not going to make that a loose chain because I want it to just get me sort of up a little way, but I don't want it really visible. So now I'm going to do 2 half treble crochets in every stitch around, so that's half double in the US, and I'm going to start with the same hole that I have where I just did my slip stitch. So it's this one here. So I'm going to do 2 in there, and we just pull up our loop exactly the same way, and with a half treble or a half double in the US, we just pull it through all 3. Simple like that. And I'm going to do another one in the same place. So I'm pulling up my loops. I've got my 3 on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. So now I'm going to do 2 in each of these stitches all the way around. So I'm increasing from 12 stitches to 24. So at the end of this round, you need to make sure that you have your 24 stitches, and just go in each stitch that you can see the V of the stitch, and just do 2 in every stitch. Simple as that. I'll do one more with you, and then I'm going to pause the video because it's boring to watch me go all the way around, and I'm going to just do 2 in every one, and I'll meet you when we get back here. So just be careful when you get to this part. It will look like you need to do more because of this this stitch here, but as long as you have 24, you've done enough. I'm almost at an end. I've got this one left to do my 2 in. And I'll just want to show you what I mean, that when you get to the end, you might think you've got to go into here, but this is really where you've started. So now I'm just going to slip stitch into my first stitch, same as before, but I'm going to go through both loops this time. Make sure I do anyway. And now I've joined. So now our work looks like this. So this, you have just made this top part here. Now we're going to not do any more increasing at all, so I'm just going to do 1 chain. I'm not going to do a big chain, and I'm going to do 1 stitch in every single stitch around. So starting in the one that I've just done, and so at the end of this round I'm going to have 24 stitches still, and I'm just going to do 1 half treble. That's a UK half treble or a half double US in every single stitch, and you'll notice it will start to curve. It will start to pull up, and you'll think that, you know, it doesn't look right, but it will work out. Just do 1. Did I do 2 in there? It's hard to see with the camera in the way, but no. So just do 1 in every single stitch all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to leave you to do that. I'm going to pause the video, and I will catch up with you when I get to the start, which will be around here. You can see it's starting to pull up and curve because we're just we're not increasing anymore, but that's perfectly fine. That's what you want. So I'm going to pause it, and I'll catch up with you when I get back to the start. I'm all the way back to the start. This is my 24th, and you can see it's come up like a little cup. So I'm just going to slip stitch into my first stitch. You don't have to, it doesn't matter if you go into the 2 loops like I just did, or if you just dive straight in, it doesn't make any difference. So now what we're looking at, this is the right side and this is inside out. So I'm just going to pop it round like this. It doesn't matter if it pops back, you can always sort that out. Now what we're going to do now is we're just going to continue exactly the same with a small chain and 1 in every single stitch around, and we'll need to do a total of 9 rows, including our first. So you can easily count the rows. You can see the little lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to just pause the video now and come back to you when you've completed 9 rows. They're all exactly the same, just 1 small chain, 1 stitch into the stitch you've just come out of, and then 1 all the way around. That's all we're doing. We're just repeating that over and over again until our work measures a total of 9 rows, and you can see them quite clearly there. There's 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th. You can just see the little rows there. So once you've got 9 rows, I'll come back to you. So this is what it will look like. I'm on my very last stitch there. Just going to complete that one and slip stitch into my first stitch, just as normal, and I'll pull that up and then we can have a look at it. And this is what it will now look like. My hole has worked its way out just a little bit. Now it doesn't really look big enough, does it? But it will. It's kind of deceiving how once you start putting the rest of it together, it does look a little bit bigger. So in this row, we're now going to make the little gaps for our tie. And how we're going to do that is the same way as we did before. We're just going to do a little chain to get up. Now in our same stitch, we're going to do a UK double crochet, which in the US is a single. We're just going to put our hook in and pull our loop up. We've got 2 on the hook, and we're going to yarn over and pull through both of them. And that's the stitch we're doing in this round. And we're going to do 2 chain, not baggy ones, just 2 chain. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch and we're going to do another UK double or US single in that stitch, and that's our repeat. We're just going to do 2 neat chains, skip 1 and do our stitch. So that's what you're going to be doing all the way round until we get to the other side. And I know that this means that you've got too much of a stitch count with doing the 2 chains here, but that doesn't matter. It works out in the next round. So we're skipping 1 and we're going into the next one. And I just going to pause the video now and I'll catch up with you when we get back to the start. Okay, so that's my 2 chain for my last one, and then I'm just going to slip stitch into my first stitch. There we are. So now we've got a whole row of these little gaps. Now we're going to put the fact that our stitch count is wrong, although it doesn't look like it is, does it? We're going to put that right now. So we're going to do 1 small chain again, and in this our first stitch we're going to do 1 sorry, no, we're not going to do that at all. We're going to do a half treble crochet in our stitch. So we're going to do 1 in this stitch, and then we're going to do 1 in our space. 1 in our stitch and 1 in our space. And we're just going to get our stitch count back to normal. So 1 in the stitch there, 1 in the space. So I'm going to pause the video and carry on until I get back to the start again. And I'll pick up with you once we get there. So I've made it all the way around. I've done my last one. I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch. And now I'm just going to do 1 more row. And so that's 1 chain, there's not a big one, and 1 stitch in every single stitch around. This is just to make a little cuff. So that's exactly the same as that row, So I'm just going to pause the video and catch up with you when we get back to here. Okay, so I've made it all the way around and I just need to do my last one. And then I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch. So that is my chain there. I'm just going to slip stitch in. And now we're going to do our border. So I'm going to do one chain. And with this border, I've chosen to do this little fluty edge, this little scallop, if you like, little shell. And this is something that I've done for many years, and a little while ago I did a tutorial on it, and that just reminds me, I haven't sewn my ends in yet, that just reminds me I haven't picked a winner, because I asked if people would name that for me, name this edging. So how we do that is ever so simple, and if it doesn't work out with the amount of stitches at the end, it doesn't really matter. So this is our first stitch, here's our second, and in our third we're just going to do 5 US singles or UK double crochets. So that's 3 or 5. We're going to skip 2, and in the next one we're just going to go ahead and do another 5. And then we're going to skip 2 and do another 5. And on my last mitten, my stitches worked out, so I either gained or lost one. But as you can see, that just makes this nice little, not over fancy edging. So how you can adjust it if when you get to the end, if it doesn't work out, is you can just do it by skipping one if you want to. So, or it's ever so simple. It's just, you know, you don't have to be absolutely precise. Oops, nearly lost that one. So I'm going to skip 2 and go into the next one. And then on to the next one, skip 2, I've got a feeling when I get to the end this one won't work out. It always never does when you're on camera. And so here we are. If I skip 2, I'd be in there. So I can just skip 1. And then slip stitch into my beginning stitch. Like that. Grab my scissors, cut a nice long tail so that we can sew in. And we end off by doing a chain and cinching it really low, pulling it down and then out, and then we'll just sew that in. So that's how it's looking at the moment, and all we've got to do now is make a little tie and make a little cord. I've just dropped my yarn, bear with me a second, it's a long way down, and that is very, very simple to do. All I'm going to do is make a chain. So I'll pop them over there out the way, and just make a slip knot. Now I normally just wiggle my slip knot, but just in case you don't know how to make a slip knot, I make a loop and then I put my yarn through it and pull it, and that's nice and simple. That's how my mum taught me when I was young to do it. And then I cinch it down a little bit. Now it doesn't matter about the tail because I'm going to cut it. Now I'm going to do a chain of 50. I'm sorry if you can hear my washing machine. It's a very long way away, but it's a loud machine. So how we do that is just simple chain, yarn over and pull through. And I'm going to do a total of 50. So I'm going to pause the video while I do that, because it's very, if I'm quietly counting, then it's very boring, and if I do it out loud, I'm going to put you off of yours. So now I have a chain of 50. I'm going to cut off, but I'm going to leave a nice long tail and just end off and pull it very tight. And I'm going to get my other end and pull that very tight as well. And that end I'm just going to snip off. Not going to leave a massive amount, just a little snip off. And it doesn't, you can tie your ends in if you want to, but I find that just makes it look a little bit like there's a big fat lump on the end, and it doesn't look particularly nice. So I'm going to move the yarn. Now with my nice long tail, I'm going to thread it into my needle or bodkin or whatever. This is a blunt end needle. Let's thread all that up, and then I'm going to put it through it. So I'm going to decide where my end and my middle is. So perhaps that's my front. So I'm going to just go in and weave it in and out of my posts on that round. Leave a nice amount there and just carry on weaving it in and out of my gaps that I created. I think my needle might come unthreaded if I'm not careful. We'll sew those ends in as well, and then we come out, so there's just this one in between, which is nice. And then I can pull that out and pull this through a little bit so it's an even little tail, and I'm just going to snip off this one as well. Now I've never had one come open, but if you have one come undone, you can just simply make a new tie if you've got lots of this yarn. And if not, you can use contrasting colours as well. You can use a contrasting colour for the edging. So all you have to do now is make your little bow. Now you can make your tie with a chain, you can use ribbon, or you can do anything really, but I've just made it with this little chain just to show you how to do it. But I think it looks kind of cute and nice, but at the same time it's quite functional because little fingers are not going to get through here and scratch themselves. So now all we've got to do is tie in our ends and secure them off. But what I will say to you is make sure, turn it inside out, make sure with this one that you are extra vigilant. So how I normally do that, I've got a little bit of speck on there, a little bit of fluff, which we don't need. Threadle up my needle, and I'm going to pull it tight so that that's holes nice and closed. Because this is the inside, this is where I wish I didn't have the blunt end needle, because it's harder to get through when it's tight. So I make a loop and then I go back through the other way. So just go through it like that and it makes a knot. Pull it tight, and then you can just sew it through your row of stitching with my blunt end needle, which is not easy. So where I had the sharp one would be easier, but you just wave it through the stitching so that it won't be coming out, just going inside that first row that you've cinched, and it won't come out. And you've tied that, well, sewed it into a nice knot as well. So, and then we can just snip off. So it's gone all the way round, and then we just make sure that we bury these. And I always go through a nice thick part of stitching go through it that way and back that side, and then you can turn them in the right way. So that's the only one I've got left to do. May as well do it, mightn't we, really? I have got the other glove obviously, but finish the one I'm doing, as long as you're working on the inside. So you need to, as this, you don't really want that to be showing, so I just usually get my work and I pull it down a little bit so it's kind of facing this way, and then I just sew it through like that and go through a row of stitching. So I'm just going to go along here for a little way until I can get it in there, and then I can go around this shell. It's not so easy with a blunt needle, as you can see. Much easier with the sharp one. I should perhaps go get it, but it's in my other yarn box, hook box. So like that, and then you can just bury that in. You can go back the other way, which will be absolutely, oh no, it's done it. It's going to say be virtually impossible with the blunt one, but it went through. See, it's not come through the other end. Can't see it. So now it's gone 2 ways. You can do it even further if you want, if you're worried about it. So cut that off. All ends are gone. Pop it back in the right way. And if you wanted, as I say, to get a prettier tie, that's fine. I've done these stripy, where every row was a different colour. That looks kind of pretty. And I've done them where the edging and the tie is a different colour. So if I'm making some baby clothes that are blue and white, then I might do this all white and this blue with the edging blue. It's just, there you go, 2 to match. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. You'll be informed when there are new videos and tutorials. So thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.